Welcome to Inside Chats. So it's great to have you all here for our first event in New York. We've done 20 of them in UK, and we decided it would be like great idea to do one here. Why not? So it's great to have you all here. And these events are all about to learn new things in research, in insights to exchange, to have like great talks like tonight we're going to have, to meet some new folks as well, and just to have fun as well. So I hope that you are going to have that. So for today and our first event, we have a really interesting chat tonight. Kira, also an amazing guest to have for the first event. And it was actually her idea to speak about how to make research more boring. So it is intentionally the title like that. So she will try to explain why she thinks like that. But for the start, Kira, if you can share a short intro about yourself, your career so far, and we can start with that.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kira. I am Insights lead of Jameson Whiskey and the Glenlivet and a few other smaller brands at Pernod Ricard USA. I've been there for about 2 years now. And prior to this, I was in the entertainment world, so a bit of a shift. And my sort of background is in like more sort of cultural insights. So a lot of like depth qual and future type of work. And now very happy to be doing brand insights. So that's
Amazing.
me.
Okay, good. And just a note as well, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So yeah, feel free to have questions. And today we are also going to have giveaway of a research book. So the book is here, and the best question will win this book. And Kira will be the judge. So let's see about that. But okay, let's start. So why do you think that we need to make research more boring?
Intentionally provocative, I should say. But I think, and maybe others are feeling the same way, something that I have been feeling a lot of in the last few years in the research world is, every conference that we go to is chasing the new shiny thing, chasing the new shiny methodology. I think similarly in like a brand space, I'm finding that a lot of my brand teams are often chasing something, right? They're often like, oh, this new trend, that new trend, we have to capture that. And I personally, where I'm coming from on this is we all need to kind of like slow down and operate maybe a little bit more steadily. I think that's what I mean by boring, is steady.
Okay. How do you think, like, how do people react to things like that? Because as you said, we just like trying to chase the newest trends, trying to chase the new tools, especially now with the AI, and the people I think a lot of them have the fear they're going to miss out. So how did that come in along, and how would you like say to them, take a step back, take a step back. So how to cope with the need to chase the new tools?
I think that when culture is more volatile than honestly it ever has been before, and when things change, I mean, culture has always shifted, I think, fairly quickly, but I think we're seeing it change at a pace that is kind of unprecedented, and a pendulum is swinging instead of from here to here. It's a constant kind of back and forth. And so I think there's something to be said for the value of, if I am, true to my brand, my consumers, sort of like keeping steady along that path, then at some point the pendulum is going to swing back to where I am, right? And so it's not about falling behind, it's not about missing out on something, it's more about anticipating where they're going to be next, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does this apply to your everyday work? Do you see from your team, and do they also like try to chase the new thing, or you are trying to the champion this approach as well?
Yeah, I think for my brand teams specifically, what I have really tried pretty hard to help them wrap their heads around is like, both sort of short-term and long-term thinking, right? And so from a short-term perspective, yes, there are things that we probably do need to be chasing, but to also keep the long term in mind. And so what that means practically is continuing to ground in, here's what we know, here's the consumer, here are their needs, here are the things that they care about, here are their pain points, etc. These are things that don't change that quickly. They are fairly consistent over time. And so the entire point of doing research to understand the consumer and to understand kind of the emotional needs of consumers is that those things are pretty evergreen. And so I think I've sort of tried to hammer that home with them.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think it's easier to explain it inside the team, but how would you explain it if a senior, or let's say if your boss wants you to chase the new tool and you're like, no, we need to keep the things the same as they are?
Totally. So I think to be clear, I don't know that I'm necessarily talking about exclusively keeping things the way that they are.
Yep.
I think it's valid to want to explore like all of these new forms of research, and I think some of them have a lot of value for sure. I think the question is about being really, really clear what the value actually is. And so I think if what you're after is speed, maybe agility, maybe quick answers, sure. I think if what you're after is maybe depth understanding, forward thinking that is maybe only really understandable in some of the like unmentionable, like in things that are maybe a little bit more ineffable, maybe that's not the right methodology, right? So I think it's really about being very clear what is possible and what's not possible with those methodologies.
Fair enough. And sometimes we are all a victim of that. We want to change the things that work fine just because of the change, right? Stuff and like that. And probably we should all be a bit better in trying to balance it out as well. Try to chase the new things, but also like don't kill all the things that work until now, right? So that could be it as well.
Yeah, I was just talking with some folks earlier about there's something to being able to really feel the insights that you're engaging with, whether that is, I can feel the tension in my gut, or I walk into a room in qual and I can really see something that someone isn't saying, but I'm hearing it, whatever. There's something about that I think is just so uniquely powerful that I think it's very important that we don't shift away from some of those like classic approaches.
Okay. Do you also feel that in insights we have like almost two groups of folks? Like one is like that is almost always just like data driven and only like will look at the specific stats, and then one we have more like where they like to get, let's say, deep inside the research. They want to feel it on their own, and in some ways they try to get the insights that are not that obvious. So do you feel like do we have like two ways of approaching the research and stuff like that?
Definitely. I think that the instinct might be to even think, oh, it's like qual versus quant, but I don't think that is what it is. I think you can absolutely approach, quant in that sort of like depth exploratory feelings kind of way. And same with qual. Anyone can walk into an interview and repeat back exactly what they heard and say, okay, that's the insight, right? And that's sort of the more surface data approach. I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it then come back down to the start of it and the good brief and the good research goal that we have, or you also find out that you can uncover the research goals that you did want to accomplish as well, like you know what I mean? Like, do you sometimes find out things that you weren't actually trying to find out?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the beauty of it. And it's important to have a good brief, of course, and to make sure that, you're aligned on what the big questions are. But I think some of the best insights are happy accidents, because they're things that those are the things that you're like, wow, I never would have expected that. That's really big. Let me activate against that, right? Let me explore that a little bit deeper.
So how to set up that you are ready to be, let's say, that you can come to that phase where you accidentally see them?
I think this might make some people mad, but I think that you have to, it's a muscle. I think you have to let yourself be open to happy accidents in insights. And so if kind of all we're doing is the surface stuff and we're getting into the practice of, only using AI, only using synthetic data, and then, occasionally maybe busting out some depth qual or something. I feel that perhaps that's a muscle that has potential to lapse, I think, that you kind of need to just keep up.
Yeah. That's all connected probably to your background as well. You have background in social science and anthropology, right?
Yeah.
So it is because of that, right? Or you saw it from your work as well?
No, I mean, I think it's both. I think, I can probably blame everything on my college degree, but I think, yes, I think that's probably true. But I think in the workplace, even people who don't necessarily have those kinds of backgrounds, I have noticed them, be more excited about those kinds of insights anyway, right? It's the things that are deeply human, that are really surprising, that are maybe contradictory or complicated. Those are, I think, you can't win people over, consumers or audiences or whatever, on an insight that isn't built off of attention, because then you're not solving for anything. And so I think that's where that's not to get so philosophical, but that's kind of where the beauty of it lies, regardless of what your background is, right? It's oh, you realize this happy accident of finding a really major, contradiction in how someone goes about their day, or how they think about products, or, the say-do gap, or whatever, all the things, whatever it is that we kind of like to say, consumers can't tell you what they want. They can, and it's our job, I think, to kind of find the complexities and the mistakes in that and activate against that.
Yeah. Okay. What's the type of research you like to do the most?
Can you guess? No, I'm just kidding. I really love anything that's sort of depth qual exploratory work. Anything that paints a picture of who people are. I've done in the past a lot of like generational work and also work with sort of specific like identity communities, and I've really enjoyed that type of work as well.
Okay. Is there any like reason why would you say that one is the best? Is that because of it like makes you feel good about your work, or you feel that it brings the best value for your company as well?
I think companies are often freaking out about what various communities are doing, and so to whatever extent you can kind of help answer those questions, it is always seen as valuable. Oh, Gen Z isn't drinking, or oh, so and so group isn't. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm focused on Gen Z not drinking, so I don't know what other people are focused on. But I think that is certainly something that companies get really jazzed about. And I think just intellectually, it's the type of work that sort of lets me bridge the like higher level like cultural stuff with the like, let me talk to some consumers as well. Like it gets a little bit sociological, which is fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like boxing groups of people, like Gen Zs love or hate to drink, or things like that? Do you feel that's correct, research correct, incorrect, wrong?
That's a really good question. Everything that I just said, scratch it, take it back. No, I mean, I think obviously there's nuance to all of it. Like people are very much more than the box that they, fit in. And there's always going to be people who don't fit into the box. There's always going to be a more complicated story than what we're seeing. And also, like some of those are real, like some of those are very much the large scale trends sort of on a macro scale that we're seeing. And so, it kind of is like, okay, well, do you want to define the box as Gen Z? Maybe not, but maybe there's like, okay, there's this box of 22 to 27-year-olds who are drinking less. So what do we want to do about that? So sure, we don't have to slap an identity label on top of it, but that is like what the data shows.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of people, it seems like these days love to play the things black and white. Like it's either this or that, and we see that throughout the work as well. How do you feel like about communication of the insights inside the company? What have you found is the best way how to spread the word that you found out in your research?
Certainly depends on who it's going to. I think people have less and less patience for like any sort of lengthy deliverable, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's always been true, but I think I have found that the most effective ways of communicating insights to stakeholders is face-to-face talking to them about it.
Okay.
And obviously with like a slide or 2 slides or whatever you want to share, 4 slides.
Or 50 slides.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. But I think it's really, really easy to ignore emails. It's really, really easy to read headlines and sort of ignore the nuance in things when we've just like put so much work into building nuance into things. And yeah, I think, just like talking to them about it and helping them to understand the nuance is really important. And I've also long been a big proponent of like workshopping with your stakeholders. So obviously not for like an executive audience, but with your direct stakeholders, workshopping sort of like implications and next steps together. And that's always really effective.
So it helps them when they are like part of the insights. They like worked on it and stuff like that. How much do you like to involve them in the throughout the process as well? Like
Beginning,
okay.
like give me what you want to know.
But
I'll
leave
turn
me
it
alone.
into a research question. No, and then I also think it helps to, if it's qual in particular, to have them come along, join, see consumers, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. Too many cooks.
Too many. Okay. Fair enough. I also like, whenever I speak to a researcher, you can clearly see when someone is more qual and someone is more quant. It almost like describes them as a profile of a person as well. Like in some way, I'm not trying to put you in a box, but it does really like speak for itself when someone says, "Oh, I like to do qual, I like to do in-person things." You can almost see they're going to be slightly against all the AI things, all the stuff like that, and the quant are going to be opposite. But it's so interesting how these two worlds, we all work together, and in the end, like we all do research. So how do you see this as well, like qual quant, the wideness, or however you want to call it? Do you have like some quanties on your team as well?
Me. I agree with you to an extent. I think, I'm certainly someone who, just from my own personal experience, like I grew up in qual, and that is very much my background. And I have spent a lot of time building up like how I engage with quant as well. And so I think, bringing sort of like qual almost like personality traits into quant, I think is a really also like valuable skill. But I think I'm losing the thread a little bit. I think that I don't know that I would say that it like makes sense that maybe a qual person would be against sort of like some of the AI stuff versus.
I'm exaggerating.
No, I know. But I think that like even from a quant perspective, there are of course things that AI can't do, or I mean I'm sort of candidly a little bit down on like synthetic data. I don't really know enough about it to be officially down on it, but I'm a little bit skeptical, I think, on the synthetic data front. And I think a lot of quant people, like depth quant people that I know, are also kind of skeptical about it.
Yeah. I mean, synthetic data, it's a topic on its own, but the thing is, it really brings a lot of reaction of the people, of the researchers, and it's either like really strong, but there is a lot of hate around it as well. But what I wanted to also ask you, just like your vision of the impact of the dashboards, the tools, and stuff like that in your work. Like, how does that combine with make the research more a boring team?
Yeah, I think like dashboards, tools, etc., are great in a lot of ways. I think like especially when it comes to just having access to kind of like ongoing data is great. I think there's a really big need to train anyone who sort of has access to them on data literacy and like insights literacy as well, and like how to really understand how some of those things work together. I think in a lot of ways, like dashboards are boring, right? They're kind of the thing that's always on, the thing that keeps you on the pulse of everything, but without really like understanding what to make of those, it then just becomes like another thing that you're chasing. Like you don't get the full kind of like value of it.
Yeah, you can't speak with it, or with some you can actually, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, we can.
Yes. Can you share an example from your work where you saw like simple, steady approach to research worked fine. And do you feel like that there is a lot of like requests for reinventing the wheel, right? Like research is a long time trade and it works in a good way. Do we really need to change it every 6 months and stuff like that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, not that long ago, there was a request to, like, in anything that we were doing, kind of start integrating AI into how you're, briefing it out, how you're sort of navigating vendors and what their capabilities are and whatnot. And, we ended up, for this particular project, it was, I don't remember exactly what the project was, but it was, sort of a quali-quant type of approach. And there was an AI element that was integrated into it. I think it was really just like AI, like something really simple and straightforward, like AI analysis of, open ends or that kind of thing, or of video responses. And I think that they used like the AI moderating tool, which I have to say, like, I know this is kind of the opposite of what you asked, but the answers were very surface level. I've seen a lot of AI moderation as I've seen a lot of like capabilities decks and whatever that are around AI moderation, and it got us what we needed for the project, but there was no real texture to it. It was very surface. Whereas, a similar project that I had done maybe 6 months prior, that was really just like diary studies. We had a lot more texture around it, which is interesting because the diary studies weren't even like live moderated, right? Because it's like you see a prompt and then you respond to it. But those questions had been just like so thought out, and they were like really, kind of perfected between the team and the vendor, versus like the live AI moderation in theory should have had more texture, and it just didn't.
Yeah. So how was the reaction then from the team and the stakeholders who pushed for the AI thing?
Well, we played it up,
Yeah. So it was great. Like,
yeah, the research went great.
The best thing of the year.
Yeah.
Like. Okay. So do you think like like at the end of the day, we need to understand that a business needs to push for a change because they want to make economics as well, and a lot of these like AI tools are trying to cut the costs, are trying to give the insights like faster and things like that, and that's the reality. We all live in the economic world where probably not the best solution is going to win.
Right.
It's the solution which can give the best ratio, the cost to have value, right? So that's the reality where we live. But in research, there is also like a constant need to reinvent things, trying to make new things. Do you think that it sometimes like makes us to forget about the things that actually work, like in like research? And coming back to your example, like we all forget what actually works in that like constant chase of new things.
I think sometimes, certainly. I think that, I get the desire to, chase speed or to chase, more with less, or, the reality of the economic constraints are obviously real. I think that we certainly forget that. I mean, it's almost like, that adage that's like, buy it nice or buy it twice. It's like, sometimes it's worth doing things the sort of like more expensive or more intensive way to make sure that you're like really getting what you need, right? I think that's true in a lot of areas of the world, and I think that has potential to be true here too.
Yeah. And that brings us back to the era with AI. So you already shared you're not so excited about synthetic data. Any certain applications of AI that you found like you think it's a good application? Because there are a lot of applications in research that are not necessarily synthetic
Totally.
data, but it looks like that one gets the most word out there because it has, I don't know, like why people get so excited about it. But yeah, do you have any other applications that you found are really good?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of stuff on the front end of research, it's obviously really helpful, right? Things like questionnaire development, brief writing, like those sorts of stuff, useful. I have for sure used it for analysis to differing degrees, especially like with just a ton of data, right? So going through like folders and folders and folders and folders worth of data and helping to kind of at least start to pull a story together, or at the very least, like kind of show me where a story might be.
Okay.
I have found that it's not great, in my opinion, at like sort of like finding the tensions in the data, right? So it's good at like summarizing. I have not found it to be great at coming up with okay, what does that mean then? So, places where I have found it to be useful are more in the like, get me to a place where I can then think of some of those, some of those extra human elements.
Do you feel that it makes you from time to time lazy in the reporting part as well? Like it likes, like when you are too relying on the analysis part of it can like make you. I read some research on it that it has the negative impact on making us more like lazy and stuff like that.
You said it, not me.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, good. Okay, shortly we're going to turn to the Q&A. So prepare the questions for Kira. Anything? So you had a quite interesting career. Any favorite stories? Let's say from this role or the role before that you love to share. All the crazy ones.
I was just talking to someone about the time that this is like more the sort of perils of a researcher, less like specific to any career, and I'll answer your question in a real way. But I was just talking to someone about the time that I crossed police tape to get into a building to do an ethnography.
Okay.
So that's kind of fun. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. It was like an apartment, and
why was there a police station?
I don't know. Okay. It was on the whole building.
Connected to the people you're going to see, or not?
I don't think it was, because then the ethnography was normal. But that was fun.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Good. So with that police tape, we are going to turn to the Q&A. Do we have any questions? And yeah, just again to say, like, we are going to give this great book. We tried to connect it to the title of today. So it's a book called Stop Wasting Research. So yeah, we found that it's connected to today's event in some way. Do we have any questions? Yes.
You talked about the happy accident findings. Is there any prompt that has kind of been productive for you using that? Because I find sometimes it's always like the last question, or when you start veering off in another direction. Was there anything that maybe you've tried a couple times, same one that kind of you got a little joy?
Welcome to New York. And I think definitely the like doorknob thing is very real. So there's that. Silence is one of the best prompts there is, I think. And I think sort of live almost calling people out on the contradictions that they have sort of talked about, right? If you're kind of like, oh, you just said this, but you also said that before. How do you square those away in your head? And kind of letting them talk about that a little bit is really helpful. Yeah.
I always like to ask, what haven't we talked about, or what haven't I asked?
Yeah, I like that too.
So do you also like moderate your?
I used
yourself?
to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My first job was at a qual agency, so I did that a
Okay.
lot.
So that's the reason why I don't like AI moderation.
I don't not like AI. Oh yeah, moderation. Yes.
Yeah, moderation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to replace. Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know. Do we have any more questions? Yes, Kevin.
What are the challenges with trying to keep research boring or trying to decide about new tools is being across them? So I'm curious, how do you try and keep in touch with the newer tools to decide what's worth using and what's not?
That's a good question. I think that some of that stuff maybe doesn't move as quickly as we think that it does. Like we've been having the same conversation about AI for what, 4 years, right? And so I think part of it is just sort of, continue. It's really just like continuing to pay attention and taking in all of the inputs that you can. So like for me, I unfortunately spend a lot of time online. I pay very close attention to just like what people are talking about, and do a lot of like, okay, finger to the wind. Is consumer sentiment on this getting better or worse? Is it feeling like people are wanting to rebel against this? Is it feel, sort of like, it's quite intuitive. And I think for me, it's almost like a conversation between, an internal conversation between what like business worlds are telling me and what consumer worlds are telling me. Those are often in conflict with each other, and I think that consumers probably move a lot faster than businesses do. And so it's like, okay, on the AI thing, businesses are telling me this is getting bigger, we have to do something about it. Consumers are telling me like, in part, sure, I'm excited about this thing, and in part, like, this is awful, get this thing away from me, right? And so in at least a couple of years, I think, I'm not saying like don't use AI, but like for any tool, it's kind of like, okay, if the consumer need is going to be sort of dropping, that means at some point businesses are going to stop kind of like putting all of their stock in this thing, which means we may be shifting another direction anyway, right? So it's very much not systematic in any way. It's more just like paying close attention and trying to understand where all of the different pieces fall, if that makes sense.
Often find our jobs a bit like triage in an ER.
Yeah.
That someone comes with a problem, we diagnose, and then we try and pick the best method. Obviously, that's limited to what we know. So if we're experts in qual, we could prescribe depth interviews, triads, focus groups, or quant. Suddenly, it's a different set. So it's just really knowing what's out there. I often find it's the challenge.
I love that metaphor.
Techniques.
I've never heard that metaphor, but I like it a lot. Totally agree.
Do we have any more questions?
So in the alcohol vertical, what's an unmet need that you've discovered?
Connection. I think, there are a lot of people who say that they get connection in various degrees, who are still like very lonely in a lot of ways. And, I'm by no means saying like, drink alcohol and make friends. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I think, there's a less an unmet need that we discovered and more of a like, this is what the need for bonding looks like for this consumer, right? And here's how we can really like tap into that and position ourselves as, not an enabler of bonding, but at least like a facilitator of, the need for connection and the need to kind of like get together and connect. Because I think that we had a pretty good understanding of what that like felt like and looked like for a very particular type of consumer, and it looked really different for a new type of consumer. I think the only other one that I can think of that like is quite interesting that I know we were just talking about before is, every headline is like Gen Z doesn't drink, right? And so we did do some research into young men, because young men are churning out of alcohol at like a rapid rate. They're just not really drinking. Young men being like 21 to 35. And the need for control has like really, really, really arisen as a very important need amongst this cohort. And so a lot of their churning away from alcohol is due to this like need for control, which I think, is less of a positive for us, but.
You can also speak to AI and not be lonely.
Yeah, it's true.
Curious, so you mentioned your background in anthropology as well as futures work.
Yeah.
So based on a lot of this conversation, with AI, around AI, how do you see in the next 5 years, let's say, the demand or what stakeholders will look for in qualitative research and the kind of handcrafted aspect of the work? How do you see that changing, or the demand for that changing, if you put on your futures hat?
I think that, honestly, it's a lot of what we've talked about. Like, I think that at some point we're going to get to a point where there's like, where people realize, executives realize that there's been an overcorrection, and that we don't understand the consumer, right? I think the 5 years from now pushback is probably, it's not going to be a complete departure from where we're at now. I think we're too far down this path, to be honest, and like businesses have invested way too much money in it to completely depart from this stuff. But I do think that like new depth human qual departments will pop back up. Yeah.
So when I think about qualitative research, it's really at the heart of qualitative research is all the depth and richness of the information that you get from that one-on-one interaction or discussion or whatever it is. It's a very human-oriented process, moderator and participant and all that. When I think about quantitative research, it's more about the robustness of data, the analytics, and the appropriateness of it. As we apply more and more AI onto these processes, what do you think are the biggest risks to decision making for people that are using these techniques?
That's a great question. I think that some of the biggest risks, I think that like it's sort of, it's the same as what I've been saying, right? It's like, AI agents and synthetic data don't buy products, people buy products. And so I think that if you're, basing every single one of your decisions on big data, on, sort of data that's at the end of the day pretty like disconnected from who it actually is that you're trying to talk to. I think there are financial risks there. Like I think that is really a real thing that businesses have to think about. You're of course saving so much money, but at what cost maybe? I don't know, maybe that's just me being a pessimist, but that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
No, I agree. I mean, in your category, there's premium products, and then there's low-end products.
Yeah.
I wonder if 5 years from now we'll be placing a premium on pure human research than AI. 100% human. I mean, that could be the label on the package.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have, yeah?
With the topic of this being how to make research more boring, how do you employ that principle in your day-to-day work?
I think that a lot of what that is on a day-to-day basis is working with like the brand teams that I work with to sort of like bring them back to the center, you know what I mean? And to bring them back to, you're going a little too far off, you know, like this is where we're at, this is the consumer, this is sort of, if that makes sense. I think it's maybe less about making sure that like your research practices are boring, which sure, I think make them boring if we can. That's also just a fun thing to like say provocatively. But I think it's more about like as the researcher being the boring voice in the room, and being the kind of like, you know, inspirational, sure, but like steady voice in the room.
Okay, I think we'll end it there. We had 6 really good questions.
Yeah.
It was a great chat, Kira. We couldn't imagine a better speaker for our first event. We hope that you had good fun. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.